And for the second weekend in a row, President Trump spent his afternoons on the golf course and doubling down on his refusal to concede the election. And while the president hit the links, Dallas organized its biggest food bank giveaway since the start of the pandemic, a snapshot of the growing economic toll facing a nation inundated by mounting coronavirus cases. In just the past week, 1 million new cases were reported in the U.S., yet another first in the fight against COVID-19. So Weijia Jiang joins me now from the White House to talk all things the latest from the White House. Weijia, the coronavirus pandemic remains the country's biggest issue at the moment. We all know that the only way to tackle this is through cooperation and coordination on the street level, everyone wearing their mask when they go out and about, washing their hands, all the way up to the halls of power. What is going on with the White House task force? And are they coordinating with President-elect Biden's team, his advisory board?
Anne-Marie, you're exactly right. And there are actually at least 2 top members of the task force here at the White House who are publicly saying that they need to have that interaction with the incoming task force, with those health experts who are ultimately going to replace them so there's a smooth transition. In fact, Dr. Anthony Fauci said it's kind of like handing off a baton, right? In a marathon, you don't want there to be a stop and then a handoff. It has to be seamless, especially when it comes to public health. But the White House tells CBS News that there are no plans to have these meetings happen. In fact, when I pressed a White House official about it, the statement in response was respectfully meet about what? Their plan, meeting the Biden's team, aside from devastating and counterproductive lockdowns and an unconstitutional mask mandate, was plagiarized from the Trump administration. And this was last night, just a few hours after Fauci and Admiral Brett Giroir, who's in charge of testing, again made these public remarks that said, you know, in order for things to go smoothly, we should be working together. But judging from the tone and the content of that statement, it's very clear that the administration currently does not share those views. And so, you know, in the end, it could be a detriment to public health and public service, because that information, that transfer of information, is so important to make sure the new team knows exactly what they're doing and can hit the ground running.
And it's such a shame because we are getting some good news. We're learning new information about a potential second vaccine. But even when it does become available, distribution is going to become a real hurdle, as some states are saying they just don't have the money to carry out an effort like that. They're going to need federal assistance. Right. So what is the Trump administration doing to help facilitate distribution?
You know, for months now, Anne-Marie, Operation Warp Speed has been in effect. They've been working on this. And actually, it is quite remarkable to think about how much time the Trump administration has put toward working out a plan for distribution and involving the U.S. military, giving a playbook to states that sort of spells out what they should do in the first 24 hours after a vaccine is widely available. They're working on things like, you know, physically how to distribute it, whether it's in doctors' offices or other places where people can remain socially distanced. So the work is there. They've been doing it to sort of detail this distribution factor, but it's very different when you have to actually do it, which is why there are also teams doing drills to sort of practice as though they have this vaccine. They are on the ground transporting it with different vehicles, in the air, etc. But again, that's exactly why Joe Biden's chief of staff said that that's probably the most critical piece, is understanding all of the things that the administration and the teams have worked out to actually get the vaccine into people's hands. And again, when I asked the White House about this, they said that information is already on the CDC website. And that's true, but that's public information. And certainly the conversations that happen in private between health officials are different from what's made available to the public. And that's, again, why the Biden team is really asking and pleading at this point for some guidance from the people who put the plan together.
And increased funding for states is actually one of the sticking points in a potential new round of coronavirus economic relief. And, you know, the Democrats were not just arguing about additional funding should states need to distribute a vaccine, but also because for many states, the coronavirus devastated their budget, devastated their tax base. They're going to need money to simply pay for firefighters or for teachers, for schools. And that is an area of deep divide. So what are we hearing about a coronavirus relief package? Could negotiations be resulting in any sort of agreement anytime soon?
Well, we're hearing very much of the same, and the problem from the very beginning is that, you know, Democrats are pushing for a big, comprehensive bill that includes measures that would help states in the long run, not only in the immediate recovery stages, but also when you're talking about the big picture. But President Trump and the White House and Republicans want to have a narrow and focused bill. And even in the past few days, that's exactly what we've heard from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who says this is an emergency. It's time to get things done. There is no more time to waste. And then the president tweeting that there should be a big but focused bill and urging Congress to get it done. So again, it's a game of hot potato. It's a game of not being able to come together and agree on what the measures should be in an actual bill. And so someone has to blink first, right? I mean, perhaps it will be the Democrats who will agree to something smaller, like measures that only address unemployment benefits, perhaps another round of stimulus checks, which is what the president wants. But the White House is also going to have to give something too. And you're right to mention states, because that is the one thing that the president does not want to do, is give more money to these states, because he claims that he doesn't want to bail out Democratic states who have long had financial problems and are just sort of using this as an excuse to remedy that, instead of using the money to address all the problems that come with a pandemic.
Weijia Jiang, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed.
Sure.